Hello, it's Philip here from collectingmagicbooks.com. In this little video we're going to have a sort of visual exploration of Ernest Sewell's career. I'm not going to go anywhere near into as much detail as you can find in this book. This is Ernest Sewell and the London Magical Co. by myself, and it's available exclusively from collectingmagicbooks.com. And we're just going to have a little run through of Ernest Sewell and his career and his products. I think we'll start with his life on the road. He was a magician, obviously, but he also performed living marionettes, and he toured around London and the provinces during winter, and in the summer he would go to seaside resorts, most commonly Bognor Regis, and he would perform in concert parties there. And this is just a few little postcards. These are original postcards from the time. So this is a charabanc, which is an early form of bus, filled with punters about to go into the Olympian Gardens, this sort of shed building here, which was on the waterfront in Bognor, and that was where Sewell's concert parties took place. Here's a few pictures. That's Sewell at the very top there, with some of his friends. I think that's Fred Rome. And these were organised by Wallace Arthur. He was a big organiser of concert parties and Pierrot concerts. There's Sewell there and there. This is Fred Rome. Oh, sorry, so that isn't Fred Rome there, is it? This is Fred Rome. He was one of Sewell's primary partners when he was doing these concert parties, and he was also a extremely funny man. He wrote a lot of pantomime scripts, actually, some of his jokes will still be in pantomimes today. And he wrote Magician's Patter, which we'll come on to a bit later. And this is Wallace Arthur. He was the man who was essentially Sewell's boss through much of this time. So that was his main career. This is quite a nice little magazine from the period. So we're talking here, Sewell was doing this between about 1905, 1904, through to the First World War. He was working in these. So this is a nice magazine from 1907 summer, and it's got nice pictures of things going on around the country, around the world. And one of the illustrations here is Pierrot and Co. at Bognor, a glimpse of a popular seaside entertainment. And you can see here that year's lineup, and you've got Ernest Sewell here saying, "Is this your card?" And Sewell's also here performing living marionettes, which is, you may have seen it performed. It's not you don't often see it nowadays, but it's essentially a type of performance where the puppeteer's face is the head of the puppet, and using a black curtain, his real body is covered, and this miniature body of the puppet can dance around and sing and perform. And that was one of Sewell's acts. In fact, I was very fortunate when I was writing this book to purchase one of the original Sewell marionette stages. So this was produced and sold by Ernest Sewell in about 1916, and it could have been one of the ones he used, but it's no way of really knowing. So on here you've got three of the puppets, but you'd only see one at a time on the stage, and where there is a gap for the head, that would be the performer's head. And this is absolutely massive. That's 6 foot tall, about 6 foot wide, because obviously it has to hide the whole performer, and it all packs down and folds into a crate. And that one has Sewell's maker's mark and his address on the inside, so we know that is one of Sewell's that he manufactured. Whether or not he used it, it's hard to say, but I don't believe he manufactured that many, so who knows. So that's his early career as a Pierrot. Now, the thing he's best known for today is the magic sets he produced, and I'm just going to jump forward and have a look. This is one from the late 20s, I think. In the book there's lots of detail on all of the magic sets, when they're from, the different series, how they interlinked, because they had different pictures of Sewell on the box at different times. The reason I'm starting with this one, even though it's a bit bashed, it's not my finest example, is this is the very, very first piece of vintage antique magic that I got. I got this when I was about 9 or 10, I think, and it's what started me getting interested in old magic tricks rather than just the ones that I could get from the toy shop. And this is a typical Sewell set, probably the most common size, the number 2 size. A really gorgeous thing. So what company made these? Well, Sewell founded in 1917 a company called London Magical Company, and he started by publishing his own book, Marionettes in the Making and Manipulation. This is an unbound copy, but there's Sewell there, and you can see what I was describing earlier. This is him showing you how to make a living marionette setup and describing how it works. And there's Sewell at the back there on one of his stages. And he expanded this into other books. So he had his own books, such as this simple little one, Tricks for Boys. Fred Rome, there, his fellow performer in the concert parties, he released these patter books. This is one of the later types where it's staple bound, and these are patter for magicians, for magic acts. And eventually he even published this book, Jokes and Jests, by Jack Rickards, who was, it's a little joke book, and he was one of Sewell's other later performing partners. And here's a picture of him here. That's Jack Rickards around the time that Sewell was working with him. That's him a little bit older. And this is the concert party they did together, Moonstones. And that's them as a sort of double act at the end. There's Sewell and there's Jack Rickards. In actual fact, it was so popular they did a BBC radio series performing the Moonstone skits. Sadly, the way radio was, it was live back then. There are no recordings in existence of that, but it was popular and he did run it multiple years. So returning to what he was best known for, it's these magic sets. Here is an original advert from about 1930 for the second range of sets. And actually this is the first range of sets. And the first range of sets had this. The best way to tell them apart from the second range is they have a snakeskin style paper. So here's one of them here. And I don't know if you can see that. It might be too close to the camera, but the paper is a fake snakeskin. So this is the very first range that he put out. I'm only showing you, I've got most of the sets, but I'm only showing you the smaller ones just because of the size of this, the camera setup. And he advertised these in magazines like Meccano magazine. So here is, I believe, an advert. There we go. So you see there's an advert for the Sewell set. And he also advertised other things in Meccano magazines over the years. So over time these sets evolved. As he got older, the photograph on the box had to keep up with him. And we go through that in the book as well. I believe there were 4, off the top of my head, I think there were 4 photos used. And the way their boxes were laid out changed. But there's probably no magician who got more other magicians into magic, if you know what I mean. Because his sets were just so popular, there were so many of them. Here's a little catalogue, an early catalogue that shows the sets with their contents. And then the other things he made, so he made actors' makeup cabinets, he made flower making sets, shadow sets, and at the end there we've got his living marionettes that he sold as well. So he did really do an awful lot of different things. Oh, before I forget, this is probably the best known book that he produced, Deceptive Conceptions in Magic by Stanley Collins. So this was the most kind of professional focused magic book that he produced. And Stanley Collins of course only did a few magic books, so that's one of the best remembered that Sewell published. And you can see here all of Sewell's books here under the Asante brand. S&T is Sewell and Tattershall, one of his business partners, but it's obviously he's written it ESANTE, Asante, Asante. It's a bit of a play on words. So the book itself, I'm really just rocketing through some pretty things to show here. I'm not going into detail about his actual career, but the book itself goes into tons. So if you're interested, it's a really interesting book. You can get it from collectingmagicbooks.com. You can only get it from us. But just to finish off, I thought I'd show some of the rarer things that he produced from his shop. Ernest Sewell's most successful game was a game called Tiddly Tennis. Tiddly as in tiddlywinks. And this was a really successful game. You find them quite a lot in old antique shops and things today. But he made a load of spin-offs that were less successful, and he made dozens of spin-offs. I've only got a small collection, but you can see online, if you go on to my my blog site, collectingmagic.co.uk, and click on the links section, Manfred Klackhofer is a collector of magic sets, and he's got a huge range of Sewell games as well as magic sets. So if you're interested, go and have a look at the link there to see his collection. But I've just got a handful of these rarer ones. So once Tiddly Tennis was a success, he just went for other games. So Tiddly Netball was one. These little mini netball nets. They all have this sort of green mat, or most of them do, which is the court in the case of netball. These lovely illustrations were done. It says P.R. Sewell, that's Paula Sewell, his daughter. She did these illustrations on here. So that's quite a nice thing about them. Here's Tiddly Cricket. Similarly, it's a cricket set, but instead of playing with full-size equipment, you play it with tiddlywinks. And these are just the ones that were most at hand. I've got quite a few different Tiddly variations. Tiddly Skittles is another one, which is a really gorgeous geometric print on here. And that's your Skittle alley that rolls out, and you've got this lovely little turned Skittles and your plastic tiddlywinks. Really nice thing, that. And then he did a joke set, which I haven't actually got out at the moment, but he did a joke set, he did makeup sets, he did this really lovely animal painting set, which is just delightful. So these are little wooden stands, so the idea was you would paint the animals, cut them out, use the little watercolours and the watercolour tray, and then you've got these little wooden stands with slots in that you'd stand up your animals, and you'd end up with a whole set of animals. So he did loads of really exciting and interesting toys, and this was in an era when British toy making was at the height that it got to. I just thought this was an interesting thing to really end on here. This is the end of the company. It actually continued until very recently, but under the name Brook Kite. So they were making kites throughout the time that they were making magic sets. And they basically became much more successful than magic sets, and they eventually just phased out the magic sets as plastic came in, and they became and imported sets became much more affordable than British made sets. So these are the kind of last magic sets they made before they pulled that back. This particularly nice one is a giant magic wand inside which is all of the tricks. Very rare though. I've not got any of those later sets. So that's Ernest Sewell. If you want to learn more about him, then Ernest Sewell and the London Magical Co. by myself, Philip David Treese, is available exclusively from collectingmagicbooks.com. If you've got any questions about him or his sets, then just leave them in the comments bar or send me an email. And I think that's everything in this very brief overview of the visual career and life of Ernest Sewell. Thank you.